we're more digitally connected than ever before, but people are lonelier than they've ever been. If I said 10 years ago that human connection was the key to longevity, I would have got laughed off a stage. But now we know that the biggest correlation between blue zones is community and human connection. We were the first place to do like ice bath classes. So we were doing it from like Cannes Film Festival to Coachella to the Kardashians' backyard. I started posting these videos. And I remember my team, they were like, John, that's for kids, that's for people dancing. I was doing it for like 4 or 5 months. We had over 100 million views.
Not only have you seen that change, but you've been along as a pioneer in that change.
A lot of my patients became my mentors. I'll never forget one of them saying, like, you have to be comfortable being misunderstood, because that means you're actually doing something that no one else has seen. And that's like a really good sign of innovation. So when I was building the first business plan, it was, how do I make something look the exact opposite of a clinic or a hospital? And if you ask most people in the US, they don't feel good. So if I can promise them that they could feel better and they can have fun while doing it, it's a win-win.
Well, I don't know where this is gonna go, first of all, and we're rolling now, but this could be the first ever Creators Founders podcast, by the way. So no pressure, but Dr. Leary, Jonathan Leary, thanks so much for hosting us at your space tonight in Boston. It's incredible here. Like, it's you walk in here and it feels like you're in an entirely different world. Congratulations on this, and great to meet you as well. You want to just introduce yourself to the people listening, watching, and tell them how this came to be?
Yeah, first, thank you for the kind words. And I'm really happy to do this and excited for tonight. It's gonna be a lot of fun. But I've been working on remedy since 2012. Always wanted to be a doctor, but realized I didn't want to work in a hospital. Not only because of the environment, but also the lifestyle of really working in a hospital. People are really stressed, they're away from their families, they're not sleeping, and it's really chaotic. And I was like, you know what, I want to just create my own type of practice, but with like a beautiful space and hospitality standards. And I moved to LA, I was 22 years old, and I was like, okay, every Sunday I mapped out like a certain amount of time throughout my whole doctorate to work on this business plan.
Where were you from? Where did you grow up, and where are you from?
From Rhode Island.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Not too far.
Not too far.
There we go.
Very close, like about an hour from here.
Yeah.
And I Googled everything on what goes into a business plan except what qualifies you for a business loan. So by the time I graduated, I had a 158-page binder. I walked into Wells Fargo and I'm like, oh, today's the day that I'm gonna get this loan so I can build Remedy. Quickly found out that's not how it works. The woman laughed at me and she's like, sir, you have no money and all this student loan debt, how am I supposed to give you a loan? And I'm like, what do you mean? That's why I need a loan. But then I pivoted and I went into private practice. It was a sports medicine practice that focused on surgery prevention and chronic pain rehabilitation. And I started with athletes, but then quickly realized, why am I just working with athletes when everyone needs this? When I was in LA, so I started working with people in the music and film industry, and then corporate level executives, and then industry leaders, and then honestly, for 5 years, I got to just travel the world with cool people and cool families and save them from surgery. But I also got 5 extra years of my own clinical evidence and my own market research on how I could enhance Remedy. And the number one complaint I had for 5 years was, Dr. Leary, I feel incredible. You fixed all my health issues, but you ruined my social life. And I remember writing it down over and over again, because in order to fix the root cause, they had to make all these lifestyle changes. And they kept saying, like, how am I supposed to go on a date? How am I supposed to go to this event? I'm not traveling with certain friends. And everything that they were doing, I'm like, oh, this healthy lifestyle is isolating them. And I knew that isolation was not good for our health. And this is way before the pandemic. And usually we knew that there was a correlation with mental health, but we didn't really know the correlation with physical health. And I think we actually got to see that through research with the pandemic. And that's when I realized I needed to take Remedy from just a beautiful place with hospitality standards to really a place to reinvent how they socialize, but instead of it being over food and alcohol, it was over a self-care experience. And believe me, when I would say 10 years ago, I'm creating a social wellness club, everyone was like, John, that's the most LA thing I ever heard, that won't work anywhere.
And now we're in Boston.
Yeah. And we own the categories. We own social wellness clubs, we own social self-care. And now we've been open since 2019, the first club.
So those were conversations that you were having and thoughts in your mind, and 150 pages 10 years ago, right? It's crazy to see, because I feel like nowadays it seems like a no-brainer, right? It's so not common and mainstream, but it's a lot more accepted that, oh, social and wellness can go together. 10 years ago or beyond that, it was probably social and going out to the bar with your friends, right?
100%.
So not only have you seen that change, but you've been along as a pioneer in that change. Talk about that process, what you've observed, but also how you've been able to build around those trends and also create trends.
Yeah, I think in the beginning it was still odd for people to hear like, oh, this is going to be how you're going to have your date night, or this is how you're going to have your birthday. But I think as people started to experience it and gave it a shot, or they were in the club and they're like, why not? Let's try. Every person that was doing it, they're like, oh, this is a no-brainer. So I think it started as like a slow momentum, and we really grew through word of mouth. And then I think the pandemic happened. We shut down. It was 4 months into being open. And that's when I really saw that, the world started really rethinking what health and wellness is, because we saw a virus almost take down so many people, and it was such a tragedy, and I think it really made people realize that there's not a magical thing that will fix your health. And I think that's what really sparked people's awareness of like asking questions and being hyper focused on learning, like, how do I take care of myself? But then ever since then, it's not just that other places are opening that have like the saunas or the IVs, but then you also have other industries that are understanding like, oh, wellness isn't just a one sector industry. And when we've talked to, from automotive to airlines to every developer to, it's kind of strange, even like, not strange, but I'm saying it was strange if I think about it back then for now, but even like fashion brands are trying to figure out what their wellness edge is. And that's where I'm really shifting that, how we can change health and wellness or our healthcare system. In order to create change in things that aren't working, you need awareness. And with awareness, that's where more research goes in, more money goes into the industry. And then I know, because I've seen it firsthand, that these things do work and these things do make you healthy, and they are an amazing first line of intervention for most things. And if you ask most people in the US, they don't feel good. So if I can promise them that they could feel better and they can have fun while doing it, it's a win-win.
And you're a little bit older than me, so this is
Yeah.
more of a question for you, but was this cool before 10 years ago? Like, was the idea of doing saunas, doing cold plunges, contrast therapy, building a space for people to hang out, to do all these things, was that like, how was that taken before it was a thing, and because now it's cool, right? Now it's something that people look forward to. They're like, oh, that's awesome. They see it. I'm sure there was a point in time where that wasn't the case.
Yeah, I think it was deeply misunderstood. But I think whenever you're doing something new or something completely innovative or creating a whole new category in the industry, it's normal that it's misunderstood. And I think that someone in my life, a lot of my patients became my mentors, and I'll never forget one of them saying, like, you have to be comfortable being misunderstood, because that means you're actually doing something that no one else has seen or done before. And that's like a really good sign of innovation. It's just about being able to be comfortable and like trusting your feeling. But like, we do so many things here, not just hot and cold, but even down to hyperbaric chambers. These things aren't new. They've been around for a really long time. I think just a lot of these things were not mainstream because the awareness around the health benefits weren't there unless you were an athlete. But you and me aren't performing on a field, but we are performing in life. And I always say that like, health is not the absence of illness. Being healthy, and the focus of health, of like how we work with people or how I'd work with my patients, is it's teaching the body and every system in the body to be more resilient and more adaptive. And the more resilient and adaptive the human body is, mentally and physically, the healthier they are. And I think there's a big misconception, because in the US we're so sick. The top 8 chronic conditions are higher than they've ever been. So what we're doing isn't working, but then the goal of health because of that has been, let's do all these health checks, let's do all these preventative scans, let's do your blood work to make sure that you don't have a disease. But just because you don't have a disease does not mean that you're healthy. And I think that is something that now we need to scream at the top of the rooftops, because that's, right now it's about, getting everyone better, but then the next phase is going to be around performance, around resilience and adaptation, no matter what system it is within your body.
How do you balance the trends and, for lack of a better word, trend? Right now, this is more than a trend. It's a movement, it's a lifestyle, it's something that's really picking up some legitimate recognition and attention from people. Yeah. But how do you balance that with the actual science behind it? And how do you go about, because I think that's something that you take very seriously, is the science. Sure.
everything is here because I've done over 10 years of my own clinical evidence firsthand and with patients. So if it's in remedy, people will know that I know it works because I've seen it over and over again. There's so many things happening in the health and wellness industry, and there's a lot of things that are gray areas, and there's a lot of things that are fads. I won't put any of those into remedy until I know firsthand. Nothing's 100%, right? Science is ever evolving. But it's really important to me that as we were making these things mainstream, my job as anyone's doctor or as, the CEO of this business is to build trust. So people need to know that we have not only the best technology, but it's the safest technology and it's the most effective technology. And then I'm not putting things in here to test. And that's really important because even things like alternative medicine, we have acupuncture, we have chiropractic. If I said even like human connection, like I was saying, like the healthy social life is so important. If I said 10 years ago that human connection was the key to longevity, I would have got laughed off a stage.
Wow.
But now we know that the biggest correlation between blue zones is community and human connection. And that is also, part of why remedy is social, because just us being here in an environment that's enhancing us is also healing.
Two-part question. When did you realize that? When did you take that turning point? Or if you knew it all along, when did everyone else realize that?
Yeah.
And when were you able to prove that? And then why is it? Like, what's the core of why human connection is so important when it comes to wellness?
Yeah, I mean, listen, right now what we know, like even down to a simple thing as like a hug will lower your cortisol levels. I think what we're seeing is within isolation, like the US Surgeon General, and sometimes I don't say this publicly because I think maybe it could be skewed, but the latest research by the US Surgeon General shows that pure isolation could be as toxic as 6 alcoholic beverages in a day.
To your head.
To your health at large.
Everything. Wow.
Yeah. And that what's interesting is what we see is isolation always causes mental health problems, whether it's depression. But what we didn't really understand or really study was what isolation does to physical health. And for the first time ever, we started isolating everyone in the world. So I don't know if you had like a grandparent that you couldn't see because of the pandemic. We saw people age really fast. Or if you really start thinking of, if you think of like an elderly couple, when there's a really close bond and one dies, one usually dies quickly after. And you can start seeing these correlations, right? And even like the power of like a team on a sports team, right? One person can be great, but when you have like 5 or a whole team that's great, the energy and the power there is so different. And I think, it's just really interesting as you start looking at that, and then you start thinking like repetition with people. Like if you don't have conversation and you don't have repetition and you're not, like whether even in challenging situations, like humans are meant to be around humans. And I think there's a lot of studies that are being released on like what has happened over the past 20 years. And people are spending less time, like substantially less, with their partner, with their family, with their friends, with their colleagues. But the amount of alone time that they're spending is higher than ever. And, we're more digitally connected than ever before, but people are lonelier than they've ever been. So like, it also tells us that the whole digital connection side is great for certain factors, but it's not making people feel connected. And we can also see a correlation overall, whether it's the younger generation or just the rise of social media, the effects of that on mental health, which is really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Part of that connection, part of that social aspect is the space, right?
Yeah.
You clearly were super, super hyper intentional about crafting that space that both served its purpose from the health side, but also made people excited and made people feel a certain way when they walked in the door. Yeah. Talk about that process, because it's so clear that was a very prominent aspect.
Thanks.
And you've knocked it out of the park, from everything from just the texture, the touch, the scent, to every dimension of it. Walk us through just what went into that.
Yeah, at first, when I was building the first business plan, it was how do I make something look the exact opposite of a clinic or a hospital? When you walk into a hospital or clinic, it's white, it's sterile, it's bright lights. There's a thing called white coat syndrome. So when you walk into a hospital setting, your heart rate will go up, your body will tense. if you're going into an environment to feel better, it would be counterproductive to make your body go into panic mode. So at first I was like, I just want to be the exact opposite of a clinic. So I went dark, and I was like, it's going to be the exact 180. And everyone we talked to, they're like, John, you can't make a health and wellness space black. Like, everything was colorful and white, and I was like, no, like, this is just how I envisioned it. And at first it was strictly that. How do I just look at the exact opposite of a hospital? And then when designing the spaces, I started to realize, like, oh, like, just like I wouldn't want someone to be in panic mode or do certain things with the design that would increase their heart rate, there's things that you can do to the design that could actually lower the heart rate, that could make them feel more at ease. So just there's a like psychology of marketing, there's psychology of design. So then I started studying more and more, because I just know, like, I know anatomy, I know physiology, I know biochemistry, and then I think of, like, how can I manipulate those things by the space? So then I was like, oh, I'm just gonna make Remedy designed to heal. Like, I'm gonna look at every single material, every single factor that goes into anything applying to your senses, and I'm like, how can I use that as an opportunity to enhance their physiology, so the moment that they walk in, that it's actually working by them not even being in a hyperbaric or a sauna. And it kind of took off. And in the beginning, that was very crazy. Now everyone that's trying to design a wellness space, they're talking about making it, enhancing your physiology and before, no one was speaking about that. And I think it just made so much sense to me. And like something as simple as a scent, scent is so tied to memory, and like your favorite hotel lobby, your gym, your favorite store, they all have a scent, and that usually, when you smell it, like, it brings you right back to that place. But 95% of scents in America are synthetic compounds, and people are like spraying their cologne and their perfume on their skin, and those are endocrine disruptors. So they're actually affecting people's hormones, and everyone's hormones are a mess. And I don't think scent is the only reason why, but it's definitely one factor. So I'm like, oh, you're gonna go into your favorite health place and smell something that is affecting your endocrine system? So even down to that, we worked with a nasal kinesiologist who traveled to 42 different countries to get all of these ingredients of raw compounds to make our scent, so that when you're breathing in a scent, it's actually a therapy. Like, our walls, like, they're not just these beautiful pieces, things of Venetian plaster. They block EMF. So there's also things of, like, when I mean every detail, if I went into it, there is a purpose and a reason.
Can you isolate one detail that was like, I probably would never even like think of, that you did here, and that is obviously for a reason?
Oh my God. I mean, there's so many. There's some of the furniture in the space that, every chair, I've actually never spoken about this but so I will. Like, every chair, down to like the chair in your car, it's always about lumbar support. And lumbar support, everyone thinks, is like the perfect thing for the spine. But what I've done in some of the pieces of furniture is like pushing on the sacrum, which is below. And what that does for me, what I think of like spinal alignment, is it's reshifting the spine to actually be in proper position. But it's very different than every other chair that you would find, everything down to like your flight, your car. My background with sports medicine and chiropractic, like, I'm like, oh, why would I push just on the lower part of the spine when I actually would want to push the sacrum forward, and that corrects everything. But yeah, like, there are like sometimes little details like that no one would ever notice, but they're like, oh, like, I feel like my posture feels really good in this chair.
As an entrepreneur, how important is it to focus on those things? Because I feel like so many people, even successful entrepreneurs, overlook that.
Yeah.
And you did the opposite, and clearly it's working.
Yeah, I think, listen, there's consequences of it. Like, being so meticulous on details is expensive. But when I think about me taking care of my patients, anyone that's taking care of you or your health, their attention to detail should be a major component. And I mean that because if I'm thinking of every single detail, that will tell me something about the character or, like, our morals and ethics in the business. And I think if you walk into a space and you're like, wow, every single day put that much thought into that one little tiny piece of a 10,000 square foot club, they probably really care. And I think sometimes when there's storytelling around the details, like I can't even tell everyone about everything that reason how or why, because we would be here for a whole afternoon. But every time that they get that, they're like, wow, I didn't know that. And I think storytelling is important, you know, and reason behind things, there should be a reason behind it. And I think that's what all entrepreneurs, like every human has something unique about them. And your unique ideas are what makes you special. And to be able to build businesses around that and have storytelling around it, it's so important, because that's where people are going to be attracted to something that feels so authentic and real. And I think especially in today's day and age, like if you're going to be an entrepreneur, it shouldn't just, for me, I'm like, I want to do this because I love it, you know? And I think when someone loves something and it's their passion, it's, you feel that. And I think you can't fake that.
Completely agree. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of our audience now are aspiring entrepreneurs. A lot of these people that are going to listen or watch this are people that dream and are building to be in this position and to build things that they're grossly passionate about. Yeah. And that couldn't be more true and couldn't be more helpful for them to just understand, because I think a lot of the rhetoric and the positioning in the media is work as hard as this, like do this and that to optimize your business and all of this. But sometimes you have to slow it down, look at the little things, and those are the things that are going to consistently help build your brand and keep it consistent. Yeah. So, for sure. Awesome. Lastly, I think obviously we have the creator side of our community, but we also have the founder side. We have the founder side, and we also have the creator side. Yeah. Talk about the role that social media has played in your journey, building your personal brand, but also building the Remedy Place brand, because I think not only were you around for such a pivotal time in health and wellness, but also for social media and how that's been, you know, a weapon for you guys.
Yeah. Here's the thing, I think with alternative medicine and a lot of all these self-care things that we offer in the club, like I was saying earlier, they've been around for a very long time. But say acupuncture, for example. I've seen it over and over again work for so many people. But your acupuncturist never had a marketing budget to be on a commercial, on an ad, on a billboard. So unless someone told you about it, that's the only way that you would try. Where like if you think of big pharma, they can create a drug and have hundreds of millions of dollars to market, so it's in front of you. So all of these things that I know work to make you feel better, if there isn't a place for people to see it and to hear it, then it's hard for it to grow. And awareness shifts everything. So I think what I've seen happen is, because of social media as one positive, social media gave a place that you can talk about anything and drastically shift the awareness. I can do an ice bath video and we can have hundreds of millions of views, but I could never ever pay for that. Like when we first opened, TikTok was just starting, and I remember when the pandemic happened, this is in 2020, I was like, oh, we have extra time. Like we were doing these before, we were the first place to do like ice bath classes. So we were doing it from like Cannes Film Festival to Coachella to the Kardashians' backyard. And I had all these really cool videos. And we also did this thing called Cooling Down Sunset. So on Sunset Boulevard, I couldn't afford the billboard above us. It was $80,000 a month. So I was like, oh, we're on Sunset Boulevard. I'm gonna do a live activation on the sidewalk. And we did 10 ice baths and we had hundreds of people show up. And like we were like stopping traffic. We had a DJ outside and it was nuts. But I started posting these videos. We started getting millions of views. And I remember my team, they thought it was so funny. They're like, John, that's for kids. That's for people dancing. And I'm like, when else am I gonna get 1 million views on Remedy? And we were doing it for free. And I was doing it for like 4 or 5 months without, you know, like not taking their feedback with a grain of salt. We had over 100 million views on our ice bath classes. And I'm like, oh, like, am I just wasting, like, is this real? Like, I didn't know, and I ended up stopping. But it was really interesting because now I look back and I'm like, oh, if that was just something that we continued, for anyone to get millions of views, like think of it, even like if you look at the new, like now that I'm on some of these TV stations and I'm seeing their viewership, I'm like, oh, social media is way more of a viewership. There's a reason why these influencers are getting paid way more money than even these actors, because the reach is so big. So, sorry, that was a long-winded answer. That social media, for me, shifted awareness, and awareness over and over again creates acceptance. And things like meditation, mental health, there wasn't something to scream on the top of the rooftop. But I think because of it, it played a major role in the acceptance. Like I knew that this was coming, but I think it would have taken a lot longer, substantially a lot longer, without social media or the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to leave here in this space, in this conversation, to our audience, or any other final thoughts, maybe what's coming next, what you have in store for Boston as is a new market for you guys?
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah, I think what's really important for anyone that wants to be an entrepreneur is that, especially if it's something innovative, like I was saying before, it's okay to be misunderstood. It probably means that you're doing something that no one else has done. And I think we've always been told, especially I think in these younger generations, that stress is bad, and these obstacles, if they're too hard, that it's a negative thing for our health. And I actually think to some extent that we're wrong. Being an entrepreneur is stressful, and there's a lot of demand. Instead of saying the word stress, I say it's resistance. And I think just like when we go to the gym, you're using resistance to tear muscles to then be strong, and no one thinks that's weird. But every single obstacle, every single challenge, anything that is hard is going to make you stronger. And all of these things that you'll learn along the way is part of the journey for you to be successful. So I think don't be scared of hard things. Don't be scared of being misunderstood. And just trust your gut, work really hard, be a good person, and it all pays off. And I think for the Boston market, to open a club close to home, this is so special to me, and it's such a special city. And the fact that I get to spend a lot more time here, I'm really falling more and more in love with the city. So what's next is, we're new. We're gonna be hosting a lot of events and spending a lot of time here just to really learn and figure out how we can make everyone in the Boston community healthier, feel better, and to give them a new healthy way to socialize as an option. And for us, being healthy is not about being perfect. I understand, there's a big drinking culture, and it's not to say that you can't do that. For us, it's just showing people that there's more options and to really enjoy self-care in a whole new way.
Very well said. I have nothing to add on top of that. That was amazing. But Dr. Leary, thank you so much for sitting down, taking some time out of your day, for hosting this event here that we're gonna now step into. Really, really appreciate it. And it's really clear that this is a really good place for us to be, and for us to be bringing people into and sharing the experience with them. So yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Amazing. Perfect. That's podcast number 1.
Let's go.